Hi everyone, this is Dhruv Bhutani from PhoneArena.com, and today we're about to compare the Sony Xperia Z Ultra with the Sony Xperia Z. We have Sony's biggest smartphone, the Xperia Z Ultra, and the very popular Xperia Z today with us. The Xperia Z Ultra was launched in July, while the Xperia Z was launched way back in January. Let's check out how the Xperia Z Ultra and the Xperia Z compete against each other. In terms of design and build quality, the Z Ultra is essentially a larger version of the Xperia Z and follows the same design language. The Z Ultra, being IP58 certified, is both water and dust resistant, just like the Xperia Z. The Z Ultra is also one of the biggest phones out there. However, it is also one of the slimmest devices with a Full HD display. In terms of dimensions, the Xperia Z Ultra is much bigger than the Xperia Z. The Z Ultra is 40mm taller and 20mm wider than the Xperia Z. However, it manages to be 1.5mm thinner. In terms of weight, the Xperia Z Ultra is heavier at 212 grams, while the Z weighs in at around 146 grams. Over on the front of the phones, we have the display, above which we have the earpiece and the front cameras, along with ambient and proximity sensors on both the phones. The earpiece is along the top edge. The front camera is at the left side of the earpiece on both the phones. Both displays have relatively thick bezels and there are no navigation capacitive keys, and hence all navigation is restricted to on-screen buttons, which eats away valuable screen space. The microphone is along the bottom edge. The design language is very similar on both the phones, although the Z Ultra seems to have improved on the original design formula by employing nicely curved edges instead of the flat edges on the Xperia Z. On the Z Ultra, we have an uncovered 3.5mm slot, a covered microSD card slot, micro SIM card slot, power button, and the volume rocker on the right side, while on the Xperia Z we have the covered micro SIM card slot, power lock key, volume rocker, and a loudspeaker below it. The volume rocker on the Xperia Z feels much more comfortable and offers better feedback than the slim one on the Xperia Z. Over on the bottom we have the loudspeaker on the Xperia Z Ultra. On the left side there is the covered micro USB port on both the phones at the top and the dock connector towards the center. On the Xperia Z we have the covered micro SD card slot between the two. On the top we have a secondary microphone on the Z Ultra, while we have a covered 3.5mm audio jack on the Xperia Z. The back of the phones is very similar, with just the camera and the same glossy glass back. Both the devices are extreme fingerprint magnets. The Z's 13MP camera comes with an LED flash and a secondary microphone. Both the phones have a non-user replaceable battery and the back cover is not removable. Overall, both the devices look very similar, with the major differentiator being the size. Pocketability remains a major concern with the Z Ultra given its gargantuan proportions. Both the phones have a 1080p Full HD display. The Z Ultra has a 6.44-inch Sony Triluminous display, while the Z has a 5-inch mobile Bravia Engine 2 panel. The Z Ultra has a pixel density of 344 ppi, while the Z has a 441 ppi display. Both the panels are extremely sharp. In terms of brightness, both displays were decent, but we found that the display on the Xperia Z Ultra tended to be a bit brighter, and color saturation was leagues ahead of the Xperia Z. Talking about the contrast ratio, the Xperia Z Ultra was much better than the Xperia Z that looked very washed out. Overall, we found that the display on the Xperia Z Ultra was top-notch. The Xperia Z Ultra is one of the first devices to be powered by a Snapdragon 800 system on chip, which is clocked at 2.2 GHz. It has 2GB of RAM and the graphics are taken care of by the Adreno 330 GPU. On the other hand, the Xperia Z is powered by a previous generation 1.5 GHz quad-core Snapdragon S4 Pro. It has 2GB of RAM and an Adreno 320 GPU. Both phones come with 16GB of internal storage and have a microSD card slot for storage expansion. Out of the 16GB, both the phones have around 11.7GB of user accessible memory. Out of the 2GB of RAM, both the phones have 1.8GB of usable RAM, and the Xperia Z Ultra has 1GB of free RAM, while the Xperia Z has 1.3GB free when the devices are idle. The newer processor clearly gives the Z Ultra an advantage in terms of performance. The Z Ultra is faster in opening apps and also in switching between them. Let's take a look at how the devices perform in some benchmarks. Moving on to the camera, the Z Ultra has an 8MP camera at the back and a 2MP shooter at the front, while the Z Ultra has a 13MP camera at the back and a 2.2MP camera at the front. Both phones can record videos in 1080p resolution at 30 frames per second. The Xperia Z Ultra does not have the single LED flash that is present alongside the Xperia Z's camera. The camera interface is exactly the same on both the phones. It is a typical Sony UI with various options on the left side. It has a single screen for both photographs and videos. Both the phones are able to capture 1 megapixel photographs while recording videos. In terms of image clarity, the Xperia Z was slightly better with lesser noise and more details. Moving on to the software features. The Xperia Z Ultra runs on a more recent version of Android, that is 4.2.2 Jelly Bean, while the Xperia Z runs on Android 4.1.2 Jelly Bean. Both the phones are overlaid by Sony's custom interface layer on top, making the look and feel exactly the same. The only noticeable change that we found amongst the two is the inclusion of lock screen widgets, while everything else looks very similar. Both phones come with Sony's small apps feature, which lets you choose a miniature version of the app that can be placed anywhere on the screen. On the Xperia Z Ultra, you can place any pointed device like a pencil to take down notes or operate the phone. Both the phones are very good for gaming, and the Xperia Z Ultra proves to be excellent because of its bigger and better display. The Xperia Z Ultra is powered by a new generation processor and GPU, which gives it a clear advantage in gaming. The level of textures and details on the Xperia Z Ultra is better. The Z Ultra has a 3050 mAh battery pack, while the Xperia Z has a 2330 mAh battery. In terms of battery life, the bigger battery on the Z Ultra is definitely better, but only by a small margin. In terms of connectivity, both the devices are equipped with features like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, 3G, NFC, Wi-Fi Direct, USB OTG, and micro USB connectivity. Only the Xperia Z Ultra has support for Wi-Fi 802.11 AC band. The Z Ultra retails for Rs 44,500, while the Xperia Z is available for Rs 32,990. Both the phones are dust and waterproof, while the IR blaster is missing. The higher spec Z Ultra offers a bigger and better display, better performance, and it proves to be great for media consumption. It also offers better battery life than the Xperia Z. The lower priced Xperia Z proves to be a bit more compact, and it has a better camera. If you enjoyed our video, please do hit the like button and do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.